Cool. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our community call this week. This week we are, hopefully you got your email. It came out yesterday afternoon. I'm Griffin, by the way. And this week we're talking about habits that I particularly focused on this summer. And we've talked about some of this stuff before, but habits that I focused on this summer really worked to hone and pay attention to and build over the last couple months, starting small and incrementally build, which is kind of the crux of all of habit building, in my opinion. And worked on that the last several months so that I can take them right into winter where they actually are even more important. So I will go ahead and share my screen, I think. And you guys can, of course, jump in and ask away if you have questions or pitch in terms of any of this stuff that you have implemented into your regime, and share your tips and tricks as well. Okay, so the first habit that I worked on specifically this summer that will set me up hopefully for success this winter as I carry it in is outside light exposure. So when I'm talking about getting outside clearly, or when I'm talking about outdoor light exposure, where I'm talking about getting outside, I mean true daylight. So not even kind of great natural lighting in your house. If you have like beautiful floor to ceiling windows all over your house, you're lucky and that's awesome, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about truly outside. Now, if you're able to open those lovely floor to ceiling windows, and have like access without filter, like the light being filtered through a window, that's great. Open the window, you're doing really well there, that counts. But either actually being outside or opening up those windows and getting access to outside. So a lot of people tell me when I'm working one-on-one with people to get more morning outside light exposure, for example, that can be a really busy time of day where you're up and maybe you're straight to the gym and maybe you're getting the kids up and ready and out the door and packing lunches and straight to your commute to work. Um, Finding little moments. So if it's waking up 5 minutes earlier and having like starting your cup of water outside or cup of coffee outside, that is fantastic. And that's something, and something is better than nothing. The window example is what I was getting towards is if you have a 20-minute commute to work, roll down those windows on the way to work because that's a fantastic way that, like, you're there anyways. You have to be sitting in the car. Hopefully, you're not sitting in bumper miserable traffic. But if you are, do something for yourself and roll down those windows and get some outside exposure. And I will tell you why that is important. It is important for a host of reasons, some of them being circadian rhythm setting, improved insulin sensitivity, hormone balance, mood enhancement, and mental clarity. So, what I mean by circadian rhythm regulation, that is the primary cue for your body's internal clock. And that the primary cue is light exposure, outdoor light exposure specifically, so outside. So, morning exposure to natural sunlight helps signal your brain that it's daytime, tells you to start converting inactive hormone into active hormone, and it helps regulate sleep wake cycles. The early light exposure suppresses melatonin, which is usually what makes us like sleepy and wind down and go to bed. It's the sleep hormone. And it helps increase alertness and energy levels. So all things that we would like first thing in the morning. In regard to improved insulin sensitivity, exposure to morning light has been associated with improved insulin sensitivity. It helps regulate blood sugar levels and can reduce the risk of metabolic conditions like diabetes. And metabolic conditions are on the rise for sure right now. So, doing everything we can to pay attention to metabolic disease is going to be in all of our best interest. Natural light exposure influences the release of hormones like cortisol and melatonin. This balance is essential for metabolism and appetite regulation, overall energy levels as well. The middle of the day sun. So for most people, it definitely depends on where you live, but for most people, we're talking between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. So during that middle of the daytime, the sun, so outdoor exposure, the sun supports sex hormones like DHEA, testosterone, and estrogen. So that's going to be kind of the sweet spot for specifically sex hormone health, and cholesterol regulation. It's all going to be related there. Sunlight exposure increases serotonin levels. This is going to be the mood component, and helps to reduce stress. Lower stress levels are associated with better metabolic health. You will notice this theme, as chronic stress can lead to hormone imbalances and metabolic disturbances. And then last one I'm going to talk about is mental clarity. Morning light exposure can really help with mental clarity and focus. It can lead to better decision making regarding diet and lifestyle, and further supporting metabolic health. So, and probably better decision making, not just regarding diet and lifestyle, better decision making as you go to work and have to make important decisions and think critically at work.
Griffin,
Yes.
there's a question from Rachel. Do you need to be in the sunlight or just being outside good enough? My
Being
yard is good and shady.
being outside is good enough. It's so a lot of times you'll hear sun exposure. Sun exposure is great, it's fantastic, but really we're talking about outdoor exposure. I will say on days that it's cloudy, overcast, gray, rainy, whatever, um, these are days that a lot of people are like, oh, don't have to go outside today, the weather is miserable. Those are actually the days that you want to up the ante, because the sun is not as direct and strong, and you're not getting, it's just not as direct, I
Efficient.
guess. Yeah, efficient. There you go. Thank you.
Yeah.
Um, so on those gray days, if you're shooting for about 10 minutes in the morning, which is a great place to start, on those gray days, I would go for like 10, I would go for like 20 or 30 if possible. Of course, that's going to be challenging with morning routine, but in an ideal world, you would double or triple your time outside on gray morning days. But if it's shady and you're under trees, totally fine. That's cool.
I would mention also that if you live somewhere like I do, where the sun might go up very late in the morning, so that when you are able to go outside, it's actually pitch black, like it's not, the sun hasn't gone up yet. And there is like a playing room there within like up to 90 minutes before the sun comes up, where you're getting the circadian benefits. But if you're even outside of that, that's when like cold exposure, and it usually naturally will be cold exposure, especially if you are then underdressing a little bit. That's creating basically cold exposure in the winter in the morning time, is creating this UV light internally. So the cold is a substitute for the sun, basically, or for the daylight. So there's a solution for anything when it comes to the winter. Yeah. So if it's dark, then just underdress, be cold on purpose, and you will see that your skin starts to get a little bit red. That's that's UV being, oh, what's it called? When it's
It's
oh,
the nitric oxide.
it will come to me. Yeah. It's this, it's a replicate of the sun, basically.
Yes,
Even better if you have gotten a lot of sun during the summer months, it will function even better, but it's always a great start, even if you haven't gotten sun in the summertime, a lot of it.
for sure. And remembering that it's not a switch, right? It's not like dark to light, like it goes from like absolutely no light to red and infrared light. It doesn't just like switch, like it's a dial. So I think to some degree, like you're still getting some light bouncing off of the moon, like from the moonlight, you're still getting some light coming from the moon. And then same thing, like when we're talking about like the first 3 hours of the day being ideal for that red light, near or infrared light, and then the middle of the day hours for that UVB, again, like it's not a light, it's not a switch on, switch off. It's all like there is like UV is building, it's much lower in the morning, but it is there, but it's building in the morning. So, you don't have to be hyper fixated on these times, but like generally speaking, the morning time is going to be fantastic for a lot of the things in terms of circadian rhythm setting. You want to expose your eyes are going to be more important in the morning hours, meaning trying not to wear sunglasses and not to wear contact lenses. If you do need vision correction, just wear your regular glasses as the light can kind of find ways in around your glasses. But contact lenses do have light filtration, and sunglasses do as well. Those middle of the day hours that I was talking about that are particularly beneficial for sex hormone support. That is going to be the time of day where getting as much skin exposed is going to be ideal as possible. Of course, nobody is advocating that you're burning your skin, so you need to sort of know your baseline and know what your skin can handle. But starting with for the fairest of us, just a couple minutes, like 2 to 3 or 4 minutes of no suntan lotion and as little clothing as possible. And if that's all you can handle until you start turning pink, and like turning pink is okay, but that threshold of like once you start to turn pink, it's like, okay, good, check the box, put suntan lotion on or put your clothes on or go inside or whatever. So no burning is what we're talking about, but getting to that point where you do start to see the pink is what we're shooting for. And
Sulfation is the word. That
sulfation,
was what
yeah,
I was looking.
sulfating that
That's no
cholesterol. Yeah,
cholesterol.
there you go. Yes. So the way that I did it this summer, so I do try to get out first thing in the morning. Like ideally on perfect days, I do shoot for 3 times a day. And of course it depends on the day and everybody has like a different structure to their day. Sometimes I do very like more frequent short bursts. Sometimes I do like a longer 3. Sometimes I do like a little longer, even morning and evening. But ideally it would be 3 times a day. I try to get at least 10 minutes at each time. And a nice little habit stack that I like to connect, just like something that I'm going to do anyways, eat. I don't forget to eat. I'm always going to eat. So stacking my meal with a post meal walk works really well for me. And I find that it works well for some of my clients. The extra benefit of walking post meal is it helps with blood sugar regulation. So bonus, it's nice to move after your walk in that regard. So that's what I like to do in the summertime. In the wintertime, this piece of the equation is, you would think, harder as the days are shorter, but it becomes and it takes the decision. You have to decide to do it. It's not like this is easy, just like we talk about. Hitting your protein goal is never going to be easy. It's never going to happen on accident. You have to plan and be deliberate and do it. But getting outside is going to be important in the winter because of that scarcity of natural light. The days are shorter, making the available natural light less. It makes it more challenging for your body to receive the necessary light cues that it needs to regulate circadian rhythm. So getting outside during the day hours becomes essential to regulating that sleep-wake cycle in the winter. Also, there's increased melatonin production during the winter because of those long days, making you feel sluggish or tired. So morning light is vital to suppressing that melatonin, as we talked about before, helping you stay alert during the day. Seasonal affect disorder. Some folks struggle with SAD, seasonal affect disorder. The lack of sunlight in winter can contribute to this. It's a type of depression that occurs during the winter months. Regular exposure to natural light, even if it's cloudy, especially if it's cloudy, in fact, can help mitigate the symptoms of SAD by boosting serotonin levels. In terms of staying active, many people tend to be less active in winter due to the cold weather and shorter days, which can sometimes lead to putting on some weight during the winter months, or a decline in metabolic health. So getting outside encourages physical activity. Often those two go together. which is going to be crucial for maintaining energy balance and insulin sensitivity. So sort of the same metabolic health discussion. And then while it's more difficult to produce sufficient vitamin D from sunlight in the winter due to the angle of the sun, it's just not as strong. And there's less skin exposure. Getting outside still helps. Vitamin D often for most folks can drop during the winter months, but it's still important to do everything that we can to get it. Even if the sun isn't quite as strong, vitamin D is important for bone health, immune function, metabolic processes, including insulin sensitivity. So how I plan to continue to implement this in the wintertime is pretty frank. Just put on a whole bunch of layers, bundle up and do it anyway. I'm going to continue to try to do the things the same way that I regularly do them. Being out in the morning or out in the evening, if it's dark, like, depending on your neighborhood, depending on your surroundings, does that mean not only bundling up, but maybe incorporating like a flashlight or a headlamp or something, just like to feel safe, whatever you need to do, whether it's safe in your neighborhood or whether it's safe due to ice on the ground, like snow and ice on the ground. Be safe, of course. But that is my plan, is to just put on a whole bunch of layers and do it anyways. If I did want to pair some cold exposure at the same time, I would put on fewer layers and still do it anyways. And then one other really good trick is a walking buddy. And then to like walking, I'm going to get into the steps piece in a bit, but I stack my outside time and walks generally. Again, because why not kill more than 2, 3, 4 birds with one stone? I'm all about that. So if you have, if your partner likes to walk, grab them. If your kids like to walk, grab them. If you have a neighbor who likes to walk, grab that neighbor. A walking buddy, particularly in the winter when it's cold and dreary and dark and you don't really want to, can keep you accountable. Do any of you
I also love, yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like in the wintertime, walks never sound good. Like it just doesn't ever sound good to me in the wintertime. But if I just commit to getting out the door for like 5 minutes into a walk, then it always feels good. Like as long as I'm dressed appropriately, my body, it's actually not that bad. Like it's manageable. Obviously in Utah, we get 0 and sometimes some negatives, but we're not like 10 or 15 degrees below 0. So it's manageable, but it is cold. But I have found there's like a different kind of, I don't know, in the summer when I'm out walking, it's nice. There's a lot of like nature sounds and a lot of just things going on, which is fun. But I really love winter walks because it is so quiet and I enjoy that. Like they feel really peaceful. But I think too, having a friend helps me a lot. I have a few friends in my neighborhood that like to walk that I'll message, but I also like listening to a book or a podcast is really enjoyable for me. Like getting a little bit of either entertainment or education while I'm walking. I kind of like just doing that with the walk and pairing that all together. And I don't like being cold when I'm walking, but I'll strip down after and enjoy some cold exposure after, which is.
I'm kind of like that too. Those are two that I actually don't really pair. I like to be comfortable while I'm walking, so I am in the bundle up camp. But some, to each their own. So if you're gonna get out there in gym clothes in the winter, good for you.
Yeah. Griffin, I also think people should look at like getting a dog.
Yeah.
that is something that I have a client personally that helped her get out. She works from home and literally she got a dog and the dog needs to walk and it's gotten her outside. Like there's so many stories that relate to that, just simply by getting a dog.
Absolutely. Like, and it's the right time of
Or
day.
any kind of animals.
Yeah.
My parents have horses and I think it's so good for them because it forces them, they have to go out and feed their horses every morning. They have dogs too. So then they feed the horses and they walk their dogs. But I really like what keeps them healthy throughout the year is having those tasks that force them outside every day.
Totally. Love that. Okay, so the flip side of outdoor lighting is going to be paying attention to your indoor lighting. So your indoor lighting is your, like, as the name implies, like all your lights, your lamps, your overhead lighting. So what we're talking about here is actually avoiding or minimizing artificial lighting once the sun goes down, from both overhead lighting and from screens. So televisions, computers, iPads, phones, all of them. Paying attention to your indoor lighting, so your artificial lighting, blocking artificial light in the evening especially is going to be crucial for your health because it helps maintain natural production of melatonin, the hormone that regulates sleep. So exposure to artificial light, especially blue light from screens, can delay the onset of that melatonin release. It can reduce sleep quality, and it can just overall disrupt your circadian function. Over time, this can lead to poor sleep, impaired cognitive function, increased stress, and a higher risk of metabolic disorders such as obesity and diabetes. So in the evenings, basically the general rule of thumb here is if the sun is down, you want to be minimizing artificial lighting, whether it's from overhead lighting or screens, as much as possible. Now, we live in a world where that's like, you can't do it perfect. Like, you can't just, like in the winter time, you can't be asleep the entire time the sun is down. That's not reasonable. That would be 5 p.m. You know, that's not reasonable, of course. We have stuff to do, and we're a modern culture. We can embrace technology. But help, like, being cognizant of how it impacts our health, and finding that balance is important. So if the sun is down, just paying attention to your artificial lighting and blocking it or minimizing it as much as possible. What works for me, in the summertime, this is actually, it's less important. In the summertime, sometimes it's daylight until 9 p.m. So in the evening, you know, if you're going to bed around 9 p.m., the paying attention to lighting and wearing blue blocking glasses doesn't matter quite as much as long as you're going to bed around 9 p.m. This starts to matter far more in the winter when the sun is down at 5 p.m. and you might be still cranking away on your computer with overhead lighting on, and then making dinner, and then helping with homework, and then getting kids to bed. You might have, 4 more hours of artificial light blaring into your eyes. So at dusk, regardless of the season, putting on blue light blocking glasses. Now, the thing here is it's not like your like regular kind of blue light blocking glasses that are clear. Like, a lot of glasses are advertised as blue light blocking glasses. And they're the, regular cute glasses that seem to be pretty clear, maybe like slightly yellow. I'm talking about 90% or greater blue light blocking glasses. So they need to be like orange or red in color. So if you are not looking at the screen, and if you're looking at us, Henrietta is wearing an example of blue light blocking glasses. They're that red color. That is what I'm talking about with 90% or greater. So I'm pretty sure they sell them in 90 and then 98%. So once, and then putting them somewhere where you will remember, and that this will probably change seasonally too. So in the summertime, for me, I don't wear them super long, like maybe an hour, because I go to bed pretty early. So for me in the summertime, I leave them in my mudroom essentially, because I will go out for a short evening walk. I'll come in from that evening walk, and then I put the keys down, I take my shoes off, and I pop the blue blockers are right there, and I pop them on somewhere where I see them and I won't miss them. And then I clean up around the house and putz around for a little while, not that long, and then I go to bed pretty early. But they're somewhere where it's easy, I won't miss them. In the winter time, when the sun is starting to go down at like 5 p.m. and I'm still here at my computer with light from every direction, I like to keep my glasses near my workstation in the winter time, so that when I realize the sun is going down, I pop them on. So that's going to be the glasses that you're wearing to help diffuse and minimize that blue light. And then also something that you can consider is for your overhead lighting, turning off the overhead lighting and using some lamps around the house and changing out the light bulbs of those lamps to be just regular red lights, not like fancy infrared expensive ones, just like super cheapy, just red bulbs. In that case, you don't have to wear the blue blockers, so long as you're not looking at screens and things. But if you're cleaning up the kitchen, if you're cleaning up the kids' room, like whatever you're doing, folding laundry, you don't need really bright light, and that red light is going to be enough, and it's not emitting crazy intense blue light that you can do a couple chores before bed. Same thing first thing in the morning, using those red light bulbs as you make breakfast or whatever the case is before the sun comes up in the morning, is a really great trick, for like an inexpensive great trick to sort of ease the body into the day and not start really pushing that blue light until the appropriate time, like noon.
Yeah, because it's simply said, like that's what you want. You don't want to expose yourself to blue light at night because that is telling your body that it's midday. And when you want the melatonin production and you want growth hormone, you want all of these processes that happens while you before falling asleep and after falling asleep, you want those processes to be optimized. And if you are sending signals by the environment you're in that it's daytime, middle of the day, those processes aren't going to be optimal, basically. So just like that's how I like to think of it. Like,
yep.
I'm sending a signal to my body that it's midday, and that is messing with my internal signaling, and I
yep.
don't want.
Yeah, and like all the things that are supposed to be happening often don't happen for 3 hours after you've been asleep. So, and that's why your blood work will come back suboptimally, and that's why you might feel, whatever symptoms you're feeling, whether it's, lethargy or, whatever the case may be, because you have that just like big delay in telling your body that it's nighttime.
Yeah, there's so many, I was just gonna say, there's so many like cortisol hacks going around right now, on just how to fix your cortisol. If you want to optimize your morning cortisol, or just in general, that is where you should start, is in the evenings. Melatonin is inverse to cortisol. So if you can optimize your melatonin production, then your morning cortisol is going to also regulate itself in the most optimal way for you too. So that's something to keep in mind as well. If you're feeling really sluggish in the mornings, likely it's because that melatonin isn't being released beyond, like it's taking a lot longer than it should, and you're not getting that cascade of hormones that comes after as well.
Totally. What's the craziest cortisol hack you've seen lately, Michaela?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I usually don't pay attention to them, but I've seen so many things. I think it's mostly people avoiding.
I feel like it's big right now. Like it keeps popping up on my feed also.
Yes. We should probably do a funny like Mythbuster reel on that.
Totally. Okay, so I blabbed too long, so I'm going to expedite these last three, but really they are they all tie into one another. So the third one is going to be getting steps in. We've really already talked about this in conjunction with outside time. I shoot for 7K per day. That's the sweet spot for me. That does not mean it's perfect for everybody. But in and around there is probably a good place to shoot for. Something that has worked really well for me. So I talked about how like my getting out, like I happen to have a schedule and a situation where I can kind of build my day and it looks very different days. And the nice thing is I've found a little 1,000 block loop in my neighborhood. 1,000 steps, 1,000 step loop takes me like, I don't know,
10 minutes.
7 to 10 minutes, depending on how slow or fast I'm going. So the nice thing there is like, if I don't have a lot of time, if I'm like working all day, I can always take 7 to 10 minutes to have a mental break and get some steps in, and I will come back to my computer and I'll come back to work refreshed and better and more productive just by doing that. So sometimes it looks like every hour or two, I'll go out just for like one loop. So that's less than 10 minutes. I get some outside time, I get some steps in, and I can bang out a little more work. And then I do it again in an hour or two. And then I do it again in an hour or two. So if you can find something like that, and I know not everybody's schedule is the same, but if you're able to find something like that, it does work really well for me right now. The next thing would be prioritizing. I might have skipped food somewhere, or maybe it's the next one. Yeah, the last one. So prioritizing sleep, of course, is going to be really important. That's actually a little more challenging in the summer as the days are longer and winding down early can feel challenging. So this is actually maybe the one that gets a little bit easier in winter. If it's dark at 5 p.m., we're all like, we're done, we're over it, we're ready for bed at 7, 8 p.m. But getting that, blocking blue light, getting a room cold, getting a room dark, having a consistent, lovely evening routine that's around the same time every day can really help prioritize sleep. For circadian rhythms purposes, sleep is going to be really important in the wintertime. It's important all the time, of course, but it's important in the winter time as well. And then lastly, paying attention to seasonal produce. So just like paying attention to outdoor cues, the body really likes to be functions best awake during daylight and sleeping during nighttime. Our bodies are responsive to that. That's how we're sort of supposed to function. That's the way that our hormone cycle goes. Same thing with our eating. Our body really responds well to eating what's local to us and to what's in season. Anecdotally, oftentimes, I do notice in myself, and I've noticed with some of my clients, just better digestion and less bloat and things like that when they pay attention to those things. So if possible, and again, this is going to be a little bit more in the summertime in terms of farmers markets, but if you're able to do some farmers markets shopping in the summertime, do that. And if you're paying attention to what's in season, the nice thing is you get a breadth of vegetables and fruit that you're taking in over the course of the year, because it's not broccoli all year round or bananas all year round. You're eating what's seasonal and local to you. In the wintertime, that might look like more of a co-op situation because the farmers markets shut down. So signing up for one of those co-ops where the produce just shows up to your house. Sometimes you get a say in the produce, and sometimes you just get what's fresh and looks good. And yes, that might challenge you. It might push you out of your comfort zone. But your body, you might be surprised. Your body might respond really well to that, eating seasonally and local. So that was a very condensed version of the last three. I apologize for blabbing so much on the first couple. Did anybody have anything they wanted to add really quickly before we sign off?
I think that was great.
Okay, good. All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining. If you do have questions or want to dive in any deeper, don't hesitate to ask questions on the app. And hope you all have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.